It's just like organic matter as it breaks down. There are a lot of different components in there, a lot of different compounds. Generically, when we talk about it, it's all of them together. Ores are different from one area to another. If you get ores from one area, it might be higher in fulvic acid, which is a material that is more available at low pHs. You might have one that's more just humic, less fulvic. Generally, most products will work about the same, but there are differences. You can buy material that's low grade, usually 50% humic acids, or you can get a higher grade that is 75%. You can use more of the lower grade and be in the same place.
Any of the rest of you folks want to add to humates? Malcolm?
Guy came to me out of California and he said, Malcolm, you got to help me make the farmers stop using NPK. I said, well, no, the plants have to have that. He said, yeah, but it's all washing down the Gulf and causing a dead zone. And anyway, I had to explain to him the difference between just NPK fertilizer and organic fertilizer is the carbon, the energy. So for a test, I went in, go find a cheap bag of 13-13-13 chemical fertilizer, and then I ground up some lignite, or coal work the same way, and mix with it. You got a great fertilizer. You can take chemical fertilizer and try to grow a plant in washed sand. You can't grow a plant in washed sand with pure chemical fertilizer. You don't want to grow it. You add some carbon, some humus, or molasses. The microbes, well, let me put it this way. The Extensive Service told me it made no difference if you use chemical or organic fertilizers because the microbes have to process either one to an ion form before the plant can use it. Well, that's probably fact. However, in order for those microbes to do any processing, they need a source of energy. Energy in the soil is in the organic matter, in the carbon. And a good source of that, if you're a farmer and you have a lot of land, you want to keep on using cheap chemical fertilizer, and you can't get enough good organic fertilizer, well, to your chemical fertilizer, add humus, lignite. Ground up coal will even works excellent. I did a bunch of research on that, and I haven't written a book on that yet, no.
I do have one thing to add on the heirloom vegetables, which I didn't mention before, and that is that they invariably taste better.
Well, that leads to another question up here. What minerals, those of you all that garden, what minerals do you feel like improve the flavor, or what components of soil or fertilizer do you feel like improve the flavor of the vegetables that we harvest out of our gardens?
When I first started farming, I thought I was doing pretty good. The guy came to me and he said he had this phosphate, is imported out of Mexico, rock phosphate. He wanted me to try some of the fertilizer. So I said, well, I'll try some. The guy drove up one day with a pickup, had several bags in it. We were transplanting tomatoes. And so I grabbed the bag, tore the ear off, and I just poured it in the furrow that we were transplanting tomatoes in 2 rows, and then not anywhere else in the patch. Well, when harvest time came, those 2 rows that I put the rock phosphate in the furrow, set the plant right on it. After A&M said, forget it, it won't work, it locks up in the alkaline soil. Well, by banding it in the furrow, setting the plant right on it, production went up 105%, more than doubled, and the flavor went up with it. So whenever you use a rock powder like that, you need the carbon, the energy to go with it.
John, what do you think about improving flavor of vegetables? You grew up in garden.
Well, I think Malcolm is, I know Malcolm is right. But a well-balanced soil with the soil food web in place there, and the other nutrients that are in an available form to the plants, and the balance of them, I think is probably the best way to reach it, is to get that balance there, get that life in the soil, and I think that that would improve the flavor of the different vegetables. I've been an organic gardener so long, I don't know bad tasting vegetables, except at the grocery store.
You have to admit though, those tomatoes out of Fredericksburg are really something special.
Well, I can't finish the ones in my yard. I haven't tried those lately.
There you go. Yeah.
Bob, if you go from area to area, you see every soil is different. You can be in one field and one side of the soil is sandy, another side's black. There are soils that are missing something, And because every soil is different, you don't know which mineral or micronutrient is in the shortest supply. Flavor is going to be affected by whatever mineral is in the shortest supply. So what you look for is some mineral compound that has a lot of diversity and will fill those voids of which one's the shortest.
Another thing I want to mention that we're not talking about, again, Malcolm probably, a good thorough compost made from hundreds of different items and composted properly, put together properly, will basically supply. I like vermicompost. I like things from the soldier flies. The more I work with them, the more I like what they put out. All your vegetables. Folks, you shouldn't throw anything out of your house that's organic. Everybody should have a compost pile. And it is, I want to say, the ultimate fertilizer. If you go do an NPK on it, it's probably very low. But if you do a trace mineral and you do a cross profile of properly composted material here, that's what Mother's been doing all these years. That's how the garden grows, in this case, the forest. And so do realize that by all means you can buy bagged fertilizers and they're very valuable. But boy, the compost is kind of the cross, it's kind of like the shotgun approach. And if you do a good compost, you've got a damn good start on what you need to grow.
You know, at one point we were talking about the lack of minerals in the soil, and a good organic farmer, and I don't remember who it was talking about the two ways of putting minerals out. One of them was out trying to broadcast it over the fields, and his neighbors laughing at him and saying, "I don't do that. I just feed it to my cows," and the cows distribute it out all the way through the, you know, through the farm. And I think that that's probably, I know these gentlemen who have made compost and worked with other people who make compost, manures are frequently one of the key ingredients, and I would agree, you know, with that compost probably has the widest range of good minerals in it of anything out there. And but I still, you know, sometimes one tomato just seems to taste so much better than the others, but that may very well be almost as much due to flavor. You're talking about heirloom varieties. I always love the fact that they describe Brandywine as a tomato that every other tomato wished it tasted like, if we could just get them to produce more. Question back to back. Yes, sir. Or comment?
Are y'all in favor of having your soil tested, and if you are or not, what do you think about A&M testing?
Let's let the two gentlemen on the other end of the table talk about a few of the things. I want to talk about what's wrong with the A&M method and what's right. We have at the Festival of Flowers for the first time, probably the soil lab that I respect most in the state. Texas Plant and Soils Labs down in Edinburgh are out here, but why don't you guys talk about the difference in soil tests?
I sent a test to A&M and come back, excessive phosphate, don't use any more phosphate. So I sent another sample, excessive phosphate, don't use any more phosphate. So what I did, I got a sample of soil from an old fence line, never been fertilized, and I mixed it up and I strained it all out real good. And I sent two samples at A&M, one in my name, one in one of the employees' name, and the other 5 of them to different testing soil labs around the state. All of the independent labs came back low in phosphorus. The two from A&M said excessive phosphate, don't use any phosphate for 2 years or longer without further testing. So something was wrong. Well, I put that on my website. It only took about a week for that information to get to A&M, and they put out a bulletin saying they were changing their way of testing soils. I'm not picking on Aggies. I like that school. There's some good kids go to school there. In fact, I went to University of Texas once, and the kids were running around in torn off shorts, dirty t-shirts, and everything else. Went to Texas University, pretty well the same thing. I went over to A&M, and these kids had ties on, white shirts, polished shoes, and I asked Sam Connor, I said, "What's the occasion?" I said, "These kids all dressed up." He said, "No, they come to school like this every day." So I asked him, "What's the difference?" He said, "Well, those kids at the University of Texas, University of Houston, are sons and daughters of the lawyers and the doctors." He said, "These kids came off of farms and ranches. They're here to get an education." How many Aggies are in here?
I'm sure there's a few.
John, you want to comment on soil testing and the ways that it's done?
Well, what I've always understood about Texas Plant and Soil Lab, and I miss Esper, is that they test for what's available to the plant, not what's in the soil. And that's real important, to come back with the soil test that says these things are here, and all of mine say discontinue the use of manure, all of them, then that's what we want to know. What can the plant access versus to what's locked up in our soil down there? And I think that's one of the major differences, except for the fact just a couple of years ago, I don't know how many it's been,